I learned early that noise don't build legacies, and the longer I lived, the clearer that lesson got. Everywhere I looked, people was loud about what they planned to do, who they planned to be, how they was about to change their life. But when it was time to put the hours in, when it was time to sacrifice comfort, when it was time to stay consistent without praise, most of that noise disappeared. What stayed was the work. What stayed was the discipline. What stayed was the truth. The road don't respond to promises. It responds to pressure. It responds to repetition. It responds to footsteps that keep moving forward, no matter who watching. I came up seeing dreams die not because they wasn't good enough, but because they wasn't protected. People would announce something before it was ready, expose it to doubt, criticism, and comparison before it had roots. And once that seed got stepped on, they blamed the world instead of recognizing they rushed to reveal. I made a decision to move different. I didn't want to be known for potential. I wanted to be known for progress. I wanted the work to speak first, because work don't exaggerate and it don't lie. When you're really building something, you start to respect silence. Silence becomes a strategy. It keeps your focus intact. It keeps your energy clean. It lets you hear your own thoughts without outside opinions interrupting the process. I realized that every time you explain yourself too early, you weaken your position. You start negotiating your vision with people who don't carry your burden. And once you start negotiating, you compromise. That's how dreams get watered down into something unrecognizable. Consistency is what separates the ones who make it from the ones who just talk about it. Not talent, not intelligence, not even opportunity. Consistency is the real currency. Showing up every day, even when you're tired, especially when you're tired, especially when nobody checking for you, especially when the results ain't showing yet. That's when consistency becomes character. That's when it stops being an action and starts being who you are. People underestimate how lonely growth really is. They think success is about celebrations and recognition, but before any of that comes isolation, long stretches where you don't feel seen, long nights where you questioning yourself, long mornings where you gotta motivate yourself without any external confirmation. That's where most people turn back. Not because the goal was too big, but because the silence was too loud. They couldn't sit with it. They needed reassurance. They needed applause. They needed somebody to tell them they was on the right path. I had to get comfortable not knowing how long it would take. Comfortable with being misunderstood. Comfortable with people assuming I wasn't moving because they couldn't see movement. But just because something ain't visible don't mean it ain't happening. Roots grow underground first. And the deeper they go, the stronger what grows above the surface. That's how real progress works. Quiet at first, invisible at first, heavy later. Results always catch up to habits. Always. You can't escape that math. How you spend your time is how you spend your life. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. Results don't care about your intentions, only your patterns. If your habit's sloppy, your results gonna reflect that. If your habit's disciplined, your results gonna expose that too. There's no hiding from repetition. That's why talking too much can be dangerous. It gives you a false sense of accomplishment. You start feeling like you did something just because you spoke on it. But words don't require effort the way actions do. Words don't demand sacrifice. Words don't test your character. Action does. And when you start valuing action more than attention, everything shifts. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself. You stop arguing about your worth. You let the output handle all that. Becoming something takes patience that most people don't train. Everybody wants fast results, but fast results often come with weak foundations. And when pressure hits, weak foundations crack. I wanted something that could last, something that could survive scrutiny, something that didn't depend on hype to exist. That meant I had to slow down and build right. I had to accept that there was no shortcut to mastery, no cheat code to respect, no hack for integrity. Internal growth is the real work. That's where you confront your ego. That's where you face your insecurities. That's where you admit what you need to improve instead of pretending you already arrived. Nobody claps for that part. Nobody sees that part. But that part decides everything. Because if you don't fix what's inside, whatever you build outside will eventually collapse under the weight of your unresolved issues. I had to learn to be honest with myself about my effort, honest about my discipline, honest about my focus. It's easy to blame circumstances, easy to blame lack of resources, easy to blame other people. But once you accept responsibility, you gain power. You realize that even if you can't control everything, you can control how you respond. You can control how consistent you are. You can control how seriously you take your craft. The process humbles you. It forces you to earn every inch. It reminds you that growth isn't glamorous. It's repetitive. It's boring sometimes. It's frustrating. It's doing the same thing over and over before you see a return. That's why most people quit right before the breakthrough. They misinterpret the silence as failure instead of preparation. When you stop announcing and start becoming, your confidence changes. It's quieter. It's steadier. It's not dependent on feedback. You don't need to convince anybody because you already convinced yourself through your actions. You know what you've put in. You know what you've sacrificed. You know the hours you stayed locked in while others was distracted. That kind of confidence can't be shaken easily. People eventually notice, but by then it doesn't matter as much. The recognition feels secondary. It feels like an echo instead of a goal. You're not moved by praise or criticism because you anchored in the work. You anchored in the process. You anchored in who you've become. That's real freedom. There were times when it felt like I was moving in place. Same environment, same pressure, same obstacles. But internally, I was stacking layers, sharpening my mindset, strengthening my discipline, clarifying my vision, and that internal progress made all the difference once the external opportunity showed up. Because when the door finally opened, I was ready to walk through it without shrinking. Most people want the spotlight before they build the skill set to handle it. They want the platform before they develop the message. They want the reward before they earn the resilience. But when things come too fast, they expose you. They amplify your weaknesses. That's why patience is protection. It gives you time to grow into your destiny instead of being crushed by it. Silence trains you to listen, to observe, to learn. When you're not busy talking, you're studying. You're paying attention to patterns. You're picking up lessons other people miss because they're too busy performing. That awareness compounds just like discipline does. Over time, it gives you an edge that can't be faked. Every decision adds up. Every choice either moves you closer or pulls you back. And most of those choices happen in private. When nobody would ever know if you skipped the work. When nobody would ever know if you cut a corner. That's where integrity is built. That's where your future is decided. Not in the moments everybody sees, but in the ones nobody does. I learned to respect the grind for what it is. A proving ground. A place where excuses don't survive. A place where intentions get exposed. You either show up or you don't. You either do the work or you don't. And over time, the gap between talkers and builders becomes impossible to ignore. Results speak a language everybody understands. They don't need hype. They don't need promotion. They don't need explanation. They just exist. And when they show up, they shift how people treat you, how people listen to you, how people value your time. Not because you demanded respect, but because you demonstrated consistency. Becoming is about alignment. When your actions match your words, when your habits match your goals, when your lifestyle supports your vision instead of contradicting it, that alignment creates momentum. It creates clarity. It creates peace. Because you're not split between who you say you are and who you actually are. I stopped worrying about being seen and started worrying about being prepared. Prepared mentally, prepared emotionally, prepared skill-wise. Because opportunities don't announce themselves either. They show up quietly, and if you're not ready, they pass you by. Preparation is what allows you to capitalize when the moment finally comes. There's strength in letting people underestimate you. It removes pressure. It keeps expectations low. It gives you room to grow without being rushed. And when you finally step into your power, the contrast speaks louder than any announcement ever could. The journey changes you if you let it. It teaches discipline. It teaches patience. It teaches humility. It teaches self-trust. You stop needing outside validation because you validated yourself through consistent effort. You've proven to yourself that you can commit, endure, and execute. And once you reach that point, there's no going back. You don't crave noise anymore. You crave progress. You crave refinement. You crave mastery. You understand that real respect comes from longevity, not moments, from substance, not slogans, from results, not intentions. So you keep your head down. You keep stacking days. You keep sharpening your craft. You keep investing in your mind. You keep protecting your energy. You keep moving with purpose even when it feels slow. Because you know that every quiet day of discipline is building something loud in the future. You know that every unrecognized sacrifice is adding weight to what you're becoming. You know that when the time comes, the work won't need an introduction. It'll walk in the room already understood.